Hey everyone, it's Daniel here. Before we get into today's episode, just want to give you a quick reminder that I will be hosting a giveaway for the podcast soon. The podcast is turning one in June. It's turning one in June on June the 13th, and I'm excited to do a giveaway to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of the show. I did a short episode about the giveaway, detailing everything, and there'll also be some details in the description of today's episode about the giveaway. But just to quickly give you some details about how you can enter and what it's for, I'm partnering with the Isaiah 117 House for this giveaway. If you are not aware, the Isaiah 117 House is a Tennessee-based nonprofit organization that provides physical and emotional support in a safe and loving home for children awaiting foster care placement. They have locations all across the Southeast United States, and they're a really, really great organization, and so I'm excited to have this opportunity to partner with them. If you want to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is make a donation to the Isaiah 117 House through Venmo. You can make your donation in $5 increments. So if you make a $5 donation, that will be one submission into the giveaway. A $10 donation will be two submissions, and so on and so forth. The winner of the giveaway will be announced on Monday, June the 12th, and they will receive the first ever Radio Face t-shirt, the first ever Radio Face sticker, and a $50 Visa gift card, all given to you, shipped straight to you. So again, you can make as many entries as you like. All proceeds will go directly to the Isaiah 117 House. None of this will be coming back to me, so I really hope you take this opportunity to support this great organization, all the great work they're doing. If you don't have, to make a donation, you'll need to do it through Venmo. So if you don't have a Venmo account, you can download it for free on your phone, hook up your bank account, and then make a donation to the Chambliss Center, which handles all the finances for the Isaiah 117 House. The handle for the Chambliss Center on Venmo is at ChamblissCenter. That's where you can find them on Venmo. And whenever you make this donation to enter the giveaway, just make a note with your donation, just distinguishing that this is for the giveaway. So you can make a note saying Radio Face Podcast. You can make a note that just says podcast. You can make a note that says giveaway, anything along those lines that denotes that you are making this donation to the Isaiah 117 House for this giveaway. As I said, the winner will be announced on Monday, June the 12th, so you've got a lot of time to enter this giveaway, and I'm really excited to partner with the Isaiah 117 House and raise some money for a great cause. Thank you all for all the support you've given me over this year so far, and I'm excited for year number 2. Thank you for the Isaiah 117 House for partnering with me, and I'm really excited to take this opportunity to help out a great organization. There'll be some more details about this down in the description, so if you'd like to learn more, head down there to the description, check everything out down there for more details, and if you have any questions about the giveaway, feel free to reach out to me on social media at Radio Face Pod on all social media platforms, or simply go to or simply email me at radiofacepod@gmail.com with any questions you have about the show or about the giveaway. Thank you again for all your support, and now let's jump into the episode. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. My name is Daniel Trenum, and I will be your host as always. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to let you know of a few things of note. First, you may or may not be aware that I host another podcast called The Third Seat. The Third Seat is unrelated to the podcast you are listening to right now, but if you'd like to check it out, then I will put a link in the description of today's episode that you can use to listen to it. If you like this podcast, then I really think you will like The Third Seat as well, so I highly recommend you check it out. Next, I want to let you know of a few ways you can support the podcast. First, be sure to tell a friend if you enjoy the show. Word of mouth is not only a great way to help support the show, but it's also zero cost. Secondly, if you enjoyed today's episode, then be sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Leaving a positive review is one of the best ways of not only supporting the show, but it also gives me direct feedback from you regarding how you feel about the show overall. I greatly appreciate if you decide to take the time to support the show in any of these ways. Finally, if you'd like to follow me or the show on social media, then feel free to check out the description of today's episode. Here you will find all affiliated and mentioned links, as well as how you can support the show online. As always, I want to thank you for tuning into and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. But first, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Lucky to Know You Apparel. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever loved your friend so much that you just want to squeeze them until they explode? Well, this local Chattanooga-based clothing brand wants to portray that feeling into a community that appreciates the people in their lives. Today's sponsor, Lucky to Know You Apparel, is using fashion and feelings to bring people together, making them ecstatically say, "Can you believe we happen to exist at the same time?" Check out their Instagram at Lucky to Know You Apparel and website www.luckytoknowyou.com to purchase your own apparel or gift one to a friend. Listeners of this podcast can use code FEELINLUCKY for 15% off your next order. Again, that is code FEELINLUCKY, spelled FEELINLUCKY at checkout for 15% off your next order. And hey, if no one has told you today, we are lucky to know you. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. My name is Daniel Trinham. I will be your host for this episode as always, and I'm excited for today's episode. My guest today is someone that I have been kind of watching from the sidelines for a couple months now. I've been keeping up with some of their work and what they do, and here in Chattanooga, their profile has been growing a lot as of late, at least from where I stand, and I'm really excited to have them on the show today. My guest today is someone who is considered one to be one of the best chefs in the Chattanooga area, and is a little bit of Chattanooga royalty in a sense. So, Kenyatta, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, for those that may not be aware of you and what you're doing, and just kind of the backstory and history of who you are and what how you got to where you are today, would you care to just share a little bit of information about yourself?
Well, I'm a native New Orleanian, born and raised there. Moved to Chattanooga in 2003 and been living here the majority of my adult life. I've had several careers since moving to Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. I started off my professional career in Chattanooga as a teacher in the Hamilton County school system. Mm-hmm. I taught for about 4.5 years at Tyner High School. Mm-hmm. I coached 2 sports while as a teacher there.
Really?
I coached the boys varsity basketball team and the girls varsity softball team.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was those were some really cool experiences and everything. And my teaching experience was a really good one too. I experienced a lot of growth personally during that experience.
That's awesome. So I'm curious. I played basketball in high school, and I'm just curious now. So was this something that you were really wanting? Like, was this something you had wanted to do, or was it something that you just kind of like this opportunity for you to coach? Was it something that you just kind of fell into to a degree? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's absolutely something I fell into to a degree. Professionally, teaching wasn't something that was on my radar, and naturally, becoming a teacher, being a high school and college basketball player, coaching kind of was a natural progression, after when the need arose at the school. So, so the principal, when I took the job, probably already had that in mind when she hired me. So
nice, that's cool. So for those that may not be aware, you were and I'm sure you've been talking about this a lot lately, but it's definitely worth mentioning. So you were on the relatively popular show Chopped back in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, 2021. Yeah.
So how was that experience like for you, and what all went down during that time?
It was a really cool experience. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I probably wouldn't have said that when it was happening.
Why do you say that?
Because it was pretty challenging. It was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Cooking under pressure like that.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But I'm really grateful for the experience. I'm really grateful that I won.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
Receiving a $10,000 check. At the end of it wasn't a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
And it's helped to give me my business and myself personally as a chef in my current career some notoriety, which I'm appreciative of. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. So for those, if you haven't seen the show before, basically, correct me if I'm wrong, like basically what happens is it's like a competition in 3 parts. Like you have to cook 3 different dishes, and it's you and maybe 3 or 4 other people, and they don't tell you like the ingredients that they give you beforehand. Like you just have like a box in front of you, and then you open it up and it's 5 or 6 different ingredients, and they tell you to make something, and then you go right there. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
So is the pressure of the show, like, is it actually the way they present it on the show? Like, is it really, as silly as it sounds, like, do you really only know the ingredients the second you open up that box, or is there any kind of like fabrications of the show that maybe we that are watching aren't aware of?
No, it's totally authentic. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
You would think. But so the only thing that they do that you wouldn't be aware of as a consumer or a viewer, watching the show after it's taped, is that when we walk in, at 6 a.m., we do some preliminary things. We sign NDAs and contracts and stuff like that. We get fitted for jackets and whatnot. Then once we've gotten all that done, and they're ready for us to walk on the studio floor. They show us, our stations. You're going to be here, 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 and everything. And as the rounds go on, if you make it, you're going to be here, here, and here, and so on and so on. And then you get to walk through the pantry.
Yeah.
And they show you all of the equipment and whatnot. They don't necessarily show you how to work it or whatever, or how to use it.
Yeah.
Then they let you look in the fridge. And that's all you get.
Really?
And then, when that's done, you get back in place and the cameras and the lights come on and it's time to go, baby.
So when you walk through the pantry, are they like you said, they're showing you the equipment? Are you also seeing like ingredients that they have there on the site?
Correct.
Well, okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
They allow you to peruse that and see what's in the fridge. These are the herbs that we have. This is what a cream is, the butter and blah blah blah, and everything's enough for everybody, and all that stuff. So. You get to do that, and that's really, and it's fair because everybody, the 4 contestants at the beginning of the competition, get to be on the same playing field and stuff, besides the skill set that they bring, to the competition.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in preparation for this, I was listening to some different interviews and stuff that you did, and just kind of reading up on just kind of some stuff that went down. And you said in an interview I believe the way the show is done is there's three different dishes, and usually the last one is a dessert, correct?
Correct.
So if I heard you correctly, and I wrote this down to make sure, you said that the dessert that you had to make, the ingredients they gave you were corn dogs, chocolate-covered strawberries, like cereal, yogurt, and cookies. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that so? First off, what did you make with that? Like, I haven't seen this, but how did you concoct that into a dessert? Is my first question for you.
So in the previous round, the entree round, I had cooked rice, and Scott Conant had got up from the judges' table to ask me if I had enough time to cook the rice, and I actually didn't. So my rice wasn't actually that great. So I wanted to prove when I made it to the dessert round that I can cook rice properly, and so I decided to make rice pudding, and it was something that I was sure of being able to do. And be able to add lots of flavor to it, and also use the ingredients to my advantage. Because most people, where they make mistakes, is they either try to make a bread pudding, or bake something, or they try to make ice cream. And those usually, if they don't work out, are the kisses of death and everything. Because if you mess up any of those and you put all of your ingredients in any of those dishes, and they either get burnt or they're not cooked enough. It kind of serves as a double whammy and kind of makes you an easy target for elimination. So my strategy was to make sure that I cooked something that I could do, and also highlight the ingredients that they gave me. So with the corn dog and the cookies, I made a streusel.
Okay.
With the cereal yogurt, I used it as the wet ingredient to make the rice pudding, and the chocolate covered strawberries, I just kind of chopped them up and used as a garnish. One of the things I regret doing is I probably should have put some chocolate into the rice pudding to kind of make it more interesting, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so, I mean, it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, it worked out. Yeah.
See, it's funny the way that you describe that. You describe it very like, I was given these ingredients, and so I was thinking of what I wanted to make with it, and I wanted to stand out, but I also didn't want to, do anything that I wasn't totally uncomfortable with. So I just used these ingredients to make this thing, and it turned out well. And in my mind, again, I'm still just like, they gave you corn dogs and cookies, I'm just like, I would have loved to have seen I would have loved to have seen what it was like to somehow turn all of that into one dish. I just think whenever I heard that, I was like, that's very, and I know that their style is very much like they're going to give you some ingredients that you've probably worked with before, but they're always going to throw in kind of one curveball ingredient, you know? So it makes sense that they were like, yeah, we'll give you cookies and chocolate covered strawberries, and we'll also throw in some corn dogs in there because, yeah, I mean, you can use cookies and strawberries for a dessert, but then what are you supposed to do with a corn dog, you know? So I just thought it was very interesting. Whenever you opened up the box and saw that, did you have like a moment of like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, or were you just, you know, in that moment were you just like, yeah, I think I've got this. Like, what were you thinking in that moment whenever you opened it up?
I think part of the strategy too is to actually do some homework before you go on the show and actually watch previous episodes and to see what works and what doesn't work. And usually, you know, there aren't the judges. If you were to go on the show, you know, most of the judges are going to be the same if you're lucky and everything. So one of the things that I knew going on the show when I saw the judges, I know Scott Conant doesn't like red onions.
Oh, okay.
So don't put red onions on your food.
That makes sense.
You know, so there are some things that, you know, you can kind of prepare yourself for and everything. And the other thing too that I learned is that you don't have to use the entirety of an ingredient. Like, for example, I could have just used the chocolate from the chocolate covered strawberries and not use the strawberries. So with the corn dog, I didn't actually use the hot dog. I just used the breading from the corn dog to make the streusel. You know, I added some sugar and flour and some other stuff to it. And then I baked it and used it as a garnish for the bread, the rice pudding.
So the actual hot dog in the middle of it was never a part of the dish you made.
No.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. See, that makes a lot more sense to me, because still this whole time I'm thinking, where do you put the hot dog in all of this? You know.
Right.
That's funny. And so now you're things are going with you over at Neutral Ground. How are things going with you so far? Now that initially when you started that, you were at Proof. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So now that you're on your own, like you're in your own space now, what are your thoughts now that you're at where you're at this moment?
Well, when we moved out of Proof, you know, the intention was to move into our own space, but that hasn't actually happened yet. So between time, we have been doing pop-ups and catering and things of that nature. So when you listen to this episode, guys, you know, if you have any needs for food service or a caterer or a private chef, please, you know, send me an email at neutralgroundchat@gmail.com. And you can go to my Instagram page and put in a catering request via my Linktree page. But right now, I've been working on some of the background business aspects of opening my restaurant and preparing to reach out to the public for funding.
Nice.
And right now, most likely the next phase of what we're going to do is to start a food truck.
Nice.
And we're probably going to operate our food truck like it was a freestanding restaurant and park our vehicle in one location and keep it there, you know, for the entirety of the time that we'll be operating that until we open our brick and mortar.
Yeah. So so do you think you would take it ever like out and around, like, or would you mostly just keep it in that one spot?
For the most part, you know, if it works out, we're going to try to keep it in the one spot. I want to try to put it in a centralized location that the majority of my customers, you know, could come to. That will be easier for them. But yes, we will move it to do events and things like that for sure. Like if we have an event that people want to book us for, and we can bring our truck to maybe cater a wedding, you know, we'll do that, you know, on a given day. If we go to, you know, some kind of festival of some sort, we'll move our truck to go serve food on a day like that, you know, just to you know, try to capture as many sales and as much revenue as we possibly can.
Sweet. That's awesome. So you mentioned, you know, towards the beginning, and you've said it in other formats as well, that you're from the New Orleans area. Is that correct?
Yes. Born and raised in New Orleans proper. I was born in Gerttown. If you're from New Orleans, you know what I'm talking about. I was born and raised in the uptown New Orleans in the Carrollton, Gertown area. And when I was a kid, we had a house fire, so we were homeless for a while, and we ended up moving, quite a bit, and then eventually, settled on the West Bank in New Orleans. And I spent my formative years, from third grade until graduating high school, living in the Algiers neighborhood of New Orleans.
So now that you, obviously now you're living in Chattanooga, do you have any like formative memories? Maybe it was at like a grandparent's house, or maybe your own house, or anything, like any formative memories that really sparked your love for cooking and for crafting a meal and for food in general? Like, I know for me, something that I always think of is, for like, I'm no chef in any way. Like, I can cook a few things, but I'm not trying to sit here and pretend like I'm some world-renowned chef or anything. But something specifically regarding food that I know that I always cherish and always think of is the meal that my mother always makes for us on Christmas, like Christmas morning. That's like a memory of mine that I still have, and that we always celebrate it every year. And it's something that's always stuck with me. Do you have any memories like that of your time in New Orleans that has kind of helped you come to where you are today, or has helped spark your kind of your love and joy for creating and serving food?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a big family, so how
many siblings do you have?
I'm one of 7.
Oh, wow.
I have 2 older brothers, 3 younger sisters, and a younger brother. And my mom comes from a big family. She's one of 9, and my dad is one of 13.
Wow. Big family reunions.
Yeah, big, right? Cooking, was always something that seemed like it came naturally for my mother. Mm-hmm. And family gatherings during Christmas, when all of the aunts, uncles, and relatives maybe came back from Milwaukee or Detroit, mm-hmm. or from wherever they had moved to, mm-hmm. in their adult lives and with their families, they would always come back to my mom's house. Mm-hmm. And when we would gather under the Claiborne Bridge in New Orleans for Mardi Gras to go watch the Zulu or the Rex Parade, mm-hmm. My mom was always the person who organized the food and everything. Mm-hmm. So food and family gatherings and celebrations, whether it be Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, was always a centerpiece, mm-hmm. of the holiday celebration. Mm-hmm. And growing up in a culture that celebrates food, mm-hmm. like New Orleans does and Louisiana, it's hard not to have an appreciation for cuisine. Mm-hmm. And there's a saying that goes, when we're eating breakfast, we talk about lunch. When we're eating lunch, we're thinking about dinner, everything. So
that's that. I will say, as a personal note, that is definitely true for me. I am that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really cool that the bug bit me, as a young adult, and I transitioned from my previous career to becoming a food person or a food entrepreneur, mm-hmm. and everything. It just seems like it was a natural transition for me.
Yeah. And so do you have is there like a dish or any specific kind of meal or any specific kind of any food that really takes you back to that time whenever you were in New Orleans? Because I know that, specifically New Orleans cooking, there's a lot of very famous dishes, and they're very well known for, the most common ones are like gumbo and jambalaya. Are there any specific dishes that are really personal to you that really bring you back to that time whenever you were living in New Orleans?
There are a few that I always go to, especially during any holiday celebration, mm-hmm. particularly Christmas or Thanksgiving, when I go home to see my mom. And they're the stuffed mirliton, which is usually made with a crab and seafood stuffing with some kind of ground meat or something like that. Mirliton in Louisiana is what everybody else would call it a chayote squash.
Okay.
It's a little green thing that looks like, they call it an alligator pear. If you go to one of the tiendas here, like Loa or somewhere, you might find it on the shelf. Mm-hmm. We ate those quite a bit growing up. That's something that you don't usually find in a lot of places outside of Louisiana, even in the restaurants that are themed around New Orleans cuisine.
Yeah.
Or stuffed bell peppers, a really nice bowl of seafood gumbo. But the most simple and unexpected one is a nice bowl or plate of red beans and rice. Just prepare it really well. Nice creamy beans and some really good rice and some salted pork in the beans or whatnot, or some smoked pork in the beans, and it's just something about it, man, that just really, really comforts me.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those dishes that, and I mean, there's, different variations of it, and like there's tons of different combos of beans and rice that you can make. But that's one of those dishes that it's something about the simplicity of it, at least to me, the simplicity of it is what makes it so special. Because like, I know that growing up, something we ate a lot, in my household, and just, I don't know if this is a regional thing, but I know that specifically in the South, it's very popular, is some kind of variation of cornbread and beans. Like it's similar in theme of red beans and rice, because you've got your starchy carb and you've got your beans to go with it. But even that meal, it's very nothing. I mean, it's very simple. You've got your cornbread, and then you've got a big old pot of some kind of beans. Whether traditionally we would eat with pinto beans, and it's the same idea. But there's something about it that even to this day, whenever if I haven't made it personally myself, but if a family member of mine makes it, it's one of those dishes that I'm still excited to eat, because it's just something about the simplicity of it that, one, is just really good and tasty, but two, it brings me back to kind of whenever I was younger, and that was a frequent staple of the household that I grew up in. So there's something about those simple dishes that still shine through, and I think there's something to that. Honestly, I think there's something that I think that those are parts of our individual and collective histories that is worth hanging on to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things, so I'll staying on topic and kind of breaking off topic. One of the things I've learned in my continuing education as a chef and a culinarian, and also learning about my personal history as an African American, was I've taken I've just returned last week from Cameroon.
Yeah.
And I've taken 2 previous trips to Benin in West Africa and Ghana in West Africa. And on my first trip to which was to Ghana, I learned that a lot of the beans that I grew up eating and that are part of Southern culture, were first domesticated in West Africa. Cowpeas, i.e. black-eyed peas and crowder peas and Sea Island red peas and things like that. And the bean culture is a thing that traveled throughout the diasporic journey of the enslaved people going to Brazil, which the national dish in Brazil is feijoada, which are black beans, and cassava and smoked pork.
Gotcha.
Then you go to a country like Haiti or Puerto Rico, and you got rice and peas. Jamaica, rice and peas, and then the bean culture in Louisiana, is one that's very prominent too, and that points back to the West African influence on the food culture in the South, and then the cornbread, as you stated and stuff, like we eat our beans with rice, but we do also eat cornbread too. But I would probably eat cornbread more with my greens, but I still eat my greens with rice as well. So, and that double starch thing is a hallmark of West African culture. And also cornbread, kind of comes to us in the South from Native Americans. So just being able to kind of taking those trips and being able to discover some of those connections was really important to me and everything. And it kind of makes, that when I have a chance to enjoy a bowl of beans and rice, or beans and cornbread and stuff like that, even more special. And one of the things too, I first encountered I kind of knew about it beforehand, but it really kind of dawned on me, and everything kind of came home was when I was in Ghana for the first time, is watching how they prepare food and how they prepare the starch. You know, one of the starches that they eat, you know, in most West African countries is this thing called fufu. And you can either make it with cassava or yam, and you probably find it made with a few other things too and everything. But they just take this starch, they cook it, and then they pound it, and they make this sticky paste, you know, that they use to eat their stews or their item with. Yeah.
Cool. And so was this trip that you took over there, was this your first time ever going over there and visiting over there before?
This last trip was my third.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I previously had gone to Togo and Benin, and also went to Ghana before that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so, did you have any? Was this purely just because I saw some pictures of what you were talking about. Was this purely just a trip to go and visit? Just like, was there any family or anybody over there? Or was this purely just a trip to go and visit and just kind of explore and learn and take it all in?
I may have run into some cousins, maybe. I'm not too sure. But on my first trip after coming back from Ghana, I took an ancestry DNA test. The next one I'm going to do is the African ancestry, because they have a little bit more solid data as far as DNA results that they can connect you to a specific ethnic group versus what Ancestry has available. But I don't, and one of the reasons for taking the trip was to be on the ground and actually just touch the land. And every trip that I've taken has made an indelible mark on me as a person, just to be there and experience the hospitality of the people, and to be so welcomed and to be so well taken care of, you know, while you're there, you know, was incredibly special. Because there's this thing between Africans and African Americans. They call it the diaspora wars or whatever. That, you know, Africans and African Americans kind of don't get along. But in my experience, you know, that's really not a thing. And if it is, I would encourage it to kind of not be a thing.
Yeah. Did you, in your time over there, did you get any recipes or anything that you, like while you're over there, did you learn any new cooking techniques or any recipes or anything that you brought back with you?
Yeah, so the trips, each one of those trips have been geared towards chefs. So the first trip, you know, I went with, every trip I've gone, you know, I went with this really well-known author named Michael Twitty. He wrote this book called The Cooking Gene. And it was a New York Times bestseller, and he won 2 James Beard Awards for it. And he's subsequently has authored a couple other books. But, you know, spending time with him, you know, driving and visiting the places and actually listening to him explain some of the things and some of the connections that are really important to us as African Americans, and being on the ground there was really key for the learning experience. And so when I went to Ghana, I ate this thing called grass cutter.
Okay, I'm curious to learn about this now.
So grass cutter is nutria.
Okay.
Which is a rodent.
Oh, it's a rodent. Okay.
It's a rat.
Just like when you said nutria, that sounds like some kind of like supplement brand or something. You know, that's okay.
No. It's a rat, and these things roam wild in the forest in Ghana and other places in West Africa, and they're vegetarian and they're very clean animals. And we got to go through the process of, you know, slaughtering it and preparing it to be cooked and everything. And I tell you, you know, it was one of the best things I've eaten.
Really?
In all of my visits, you know, to West Africa. Either in Ghana, Benin, Togo, and Cameroon. Then Benin, you know, I got a lot of I experienced nostalgia a couple times, having some meals there. One of the meals I had was a plate of white beans.
Yeah.
Which was so reminiscent of growing up in my mom's house and eating her cooking.
Yeah.
I kind of had the ratatouille moment.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
Yeah. And I sat there at the table and was just mesmerized, by the plate of food that was in front of me.
Yeah.
And then this last trip, I experienced something that was really cool because the other two trips, we had gone to spice markets and stuff and looked at some things and everything, but Cameroon was really different. I was able to bring back some things that I'm really, really interested in using and incorporating into my cooking here in the States and everything. But I saw and learned about ingredients that I had never heard about before. Some of the same things happened in Ghana, but these things were incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I learned about was this bark called garlic bark, if I remember the name correctly. But
like tree bark? Is that what you're talking about?
Like a tree bark,
okay.
Yeah. And it has this intoxicating aroma of garlic.
Okay.
And it's incredible. Like at home, you walk into my place, it smells, like this ingredient. But then I learned about this thing called country onion or control onion, and it's some kind of a nut or dry thing that has an intense flavor and aroma of onion. And I'm like, wow, this, like, imagine what you can do with some kind of dry spice with this and putting it on something or using it to finish something, or grating it on something, whatnot and everything. So those are really cool. And then just those things and stuff, and then, each country in West Africa is different, given the ethnic groups that live there and the history and the religious practices that they have. In Cameroon, there are lots of Muslims. And they eat lots of beef. So we got to see a lot of the places that we stopped and visited. You would find people on the roadside selling these skewers of meat on sticks.
Yeah.
Meat on sticks called suya. And that was really interesting. And I was really excited about being able to taste and experience that and everything. And we got to eat some really, really good suya while we're in Cameroon as well.
Nice. I'm sure that, it's funny you say that because in my experience growing up, I grew up an hour up the road from here. And so, at the, the foot of the Appalachian Mountains and everything. And my experience with food being sold on the side of the road is something that you never want to, usually it's not something you want, unless it's like, like maybe corn, it's like it's a vegetable that you can trust around this area.
Right.
Usually it's not something that at least I was never particularly interested in. I remember there was one time I was driving, and keep in mind, again, I grew up at the foot of Appalachian Mountains, and someone was selling what they said was fresh shrimp out of the back of a van. And I didn't go up and ask them, but I just was thinking, how fresh can it be? We don't live like on the coast of Florida or something like where we have access to a major waterway to get to. But that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now that you are looking to hopefully in the future, turn, like you mentioned, Neutral Ground is going to be hopefully be a food truck, and then maybe down the road it'll have its own brick and mortar place. Well, first off, how long have you officially been working in one way or in one way, shape, or form in the kind of food business?
When I was teaching, after my first year of teaching, I would spend my summers working in kitchens.
Yeah.
So my second year teaching, I spent pretty much the entirety of my summers working in kitchens.
Yeah.
And I kind of, around this first or second year, I kind of made the decision that I was going to make a transition.
Yeah.
So that time, I began doing a lot of research and reading and learning about, what it would be like to be a chef. I started researching culinary schools, and I visited a couple places and everything, and started looking at funding and how much it would cost and how much it would cost to make the transition. And after graduating, what kind of job I could get and what kind of pathway I should try to take in order to pursue the type of career that I wanted in the food business. But I wouldn't really count that, as time, being a chef. It was experience and stuff, because I got to, work in kitchens and learn. No matter how small the role was, everything was still a learning experience. But probably 12 to 15 years.
Gotcha. So, that's a long time. That's awesome. So now that you've been over a decade into this, something that always strikes me a lot of times if I ever go out to eat is I think a lot of the best restaurants are the ones that, at least this is kind of the way I look at it. Yes, obviously they have great food, but they do a great job of allowing you to not realize all that's going into the dish that you're eating. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, if I came and ate at a restaurant that you're working at, and the waiter or waitress brings over a dish and it's great and it's fantastic and we have a wonderful evening and everything goes planned, the things that had to go into that happening was not just, oh, there's a dish that's been ordered and it was cooked and then it was served. There's so many more things that go into it, like the atmosphere of the place, the staff that has to be, that has to kind of put on the
Performance.
The performance. Yeah, like that's they're kind of putting on a show for you in one way or another, and then you add on to the fact that the food should be made well, and if it's worth your time, it'll be made in a unique and interesting way. And I think part of the beauty of restaurants is kind of all of that being hidden from you to a degree, so that all you can focus on is the dish that's in front of you. And so I say all that to say, now that you've been working for over a decade or so, what are some kind of misconceptions or things that maybe people don't see about the restaurant industry that you've been able to see now that you've been working for 10 or almost over 15 years now?
To have a meal at a really high quality establishment, it takes hours of prep and work just to put that one plate in front of a guest. Whether it be in the front of the house or the back of the house. Usually before the restaurant opens, there have been people in the building probably since 8 a.m. Preparing for the 4-hour dinner service that they're going to offer to the public on any given night of the week. Whether it be somebody getting there at 8 a.m. to check in the orders, to put the fish away, to ice the fish, to pull something from the freezer, or to bake the bread, or batch cocktails, or pull something that's been fermenting, or whatever, So there's a lot of work that goes into it, So when you get to the restaurant and you're greeted as a hostess stand and you're taken to your table and you order your food and everything, there's been hours of work that have gone into making that experience a seamless one. For you to get your fresh, hot, delicious item, that you've just ordered and everything. And the restaurants that do it really well, they pay painstaking attention to detail to make sure that each guest gets what they're expecting to get, and that they can offer the guest, the best possible experience that they can give them.
And I think that's, when you say that, obviously that makes sense in my head. That makes sense. But it's like, none of that stuff, that's not what comes to mind whenever I'm, if I'm at a restaurant. Like, I'm not thinking about the fact that whatever it is that I ordered, someone was there 2, 3, 4 hours prior to the store even opening, prepping these things so that whenever I take part in it, it would be the most fresh and most, pleasing experience. But I think that's part of the beauty of it, is that that's part of the show is yes, you can recognize the fact that takes place, but part of the fact that you may not realize you get to fully indulge in the meal in front of you and not necessarily have to think about all the things that are happening in the background is part of the joy of being the customer in that sense, Right. Yeah. I think that's really cool, but it's still crazy to me. Like, I was watching a video not long ago, and it was by this guy who he used to work kind of in corporate restaurant, and now he's just making different cooking videos on his own. And he had gone back to like the old restaurant that he worked at, and he was talking to some of his friends that were there, and it shocked me how much time and effort went into the creation of the things that they were making relative to the amount of time that they were open, if that makes sense, And I mean, obviously different restaurants are open for different times, and different restaurants are striving for different outcomes, but he was there, they were all there prepping things for hours and hours and hours and hours. And they like ate breakfast and lunch together. And this was before the restaurant actually opened. And I was like, when are they going to get to the point where people are going to come in? Like, they've been prepping all this food and doing all these things. And it seems like they've just been kind of hanging out at this restaurant. But then, obviously, whenever dinner time comes around, whether it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock, whatever time that they open up, there's people there showing up and they're there for the experience. But it shocked me how much time and effort goes into. And this was it was a fine dining experience, so it's going to be different than, other restaurants. But it shocked me how much time and effort truly went into that experience. And I know so many times, like, I fail to recognize that as the consumer in the restaurant,
Yeah. And that's why it's important. It's kind of a double-edged sword and everything, because a lot of times when you're a fine dining restaurant or you're striving for that level of food and service and drink to offer that to the public, if people aren't cognizant or aware the level of skill and dedication that it takes to practice that, the discipline that it takes, and everything to offer that to the public, they can sometimes, it can kind of make the experience a wash, because they don't necessarily appreciate it. But usually the people that do, for the most part, go to restaurants like that, they know what they're going to get, and they don't mind paying the price for what they're getting as well.
Yeah.
Because kind of the job of the chef is to make sure that every guest gets the same experience every time that they come, and that they use their creativity and all the skills that they've developed over the years to prepare a meal that's worthy of a guest coming to take a seat.
Yeah. So something I'm curious about is your role as, like the head chef of a restaurant. Obviously there's other people in the back of a kitchen that do different jobs at a restaurant. There's people prepping, there may be somebody, like I'd heard somebody on some show, and they worked at some restaurant, and their whole job was just to make the pickles. Like, they were just cutting up like cucumbers and then just putting them in the brine, and like that was their whole job, and so, but your job as the chef, are you more of like a orchestrator now, or are you still kind of in the role where you're kind of in the weeds, making kind of detailed decisions, actually prepping the dishes, or what does your role look like as the head chef of a restaurant compared to maybe someone a little bit down the line, if that makes sense?
And right now, in my development of my restaurant, I'm very hands-on, but my role also is kind of the orchestrator as well, and everything. Ideally, I would like to get to the point where I'm more of an orchestrator and the conductor, and there's other people that are taking care of the day-to-day things. Yeah, that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah.
And we haven't reached a point to where we have the capacity to have a full team of chefs working for us, and I also have a full team of front of the house people working for us.
That's awesome. Something I'm curious about, and I've talked to some people before that work in the food industry, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is the topic of culinary school and the role that it plays in people actually getting careers in and going to have jobs and sustainable careers in the food industry. You said you mentioned you went to culinary school. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
So obviously you're living proof that, for lack of better words, like it works. People go to culinary school and they have, they make careers out of it. But, I've also heard some people make the argument that like, you don't necessarily have to go to culinary school. Like you can learn to cook even if you don't go to culinary school, and you can be a great chef and you can make great food even if you don't necessarily go to culinary school. It's kind of like going to art school or something. Like art is subjective, and so you can be a great artist on your own even if you don't necessarily go to an art school. If that makes sense. And so I want to hear your thoughts a little bit just on that topic and that discussion. How do you view the role that culinary school plays in the restaurant and food business at large, and what do you think about the discussion about whether it's something you should do or whether you need to go to it or not for a long-lasting career? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'll start with my experience first, and the reason why I decided to go to culinary school was because I was a non-traditional student.
Mm-hmm.
I had already gone to college twice. Mm-hmm. I had already got an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree. Mm-hmm. To become a teacher. So my choice in going to culinary school was one, I was older and I didn't see the point of going kind of through the school of hard knocks and making my druthers by working the line in restaurants and everything at the ripe old age of 27.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be more advantageous for me as a non-traditional person getting into the food business to go to culinary school to kind of fast track myself by learning in a controlled environment from people who have lots of industry experience, and also going to New York as well to actually, while I was there, work in restaurants in New York City. And New York in general. So that was the reason why I decided to go to culinary school. Now, culinary school is very expensive, and I'm still paying for it right now. And so the other argument I would make is because culinary school is so expensive and the jobs that are offered, especially when I first started my career and finished, it doesn't make sense to go to college, to culinary school, and get either a 2-year or 4-year degree and come out and get a job paying $10 an hour and you're in debt.
Yeah.
So my argument would be to go work in kitchens and go work for the best chef that you can get a job working for and be diligent about what you're doing every day when you go to work and learn. Right. And then if you're serious enough and you're dedicated enough, you find it might be a good idea for you to further your learning in a controlled environment and go to culinary school, because the CIA is a really good institution. I learned quite a bit. All culinary schools aren't created the same. So I would suggest that people do research and be intentional about what they decide to do and what you want to learn, and try to figure out the best environment for you. Because culinary schools cost a lot of money, and it costs a lot of money to operate culinary schools because quite a few of them have opened and closed. But the CIA has been around for a long time, and it has a really, really good reputation. It has a really big alumni network. So that was one of the things that I considered in making the decision to go to culinary school. It helps, to have, that you graduated from the Culinary Institute of America on your resume. Most people consider the CIA the Harvard of culinary schools. It really ultimately is more about what you put into it. So if there's quite a few people that I started my cohort with, and when I went to the CIA, that aren't working in the food business anymore.
Yeah.
Not as traditional chefs.
Yeah.
Some may have transitioned to other jobs, which is fine and everything, but it's a hard knock life.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to consider, and I would encourage those who want to do it to really spend some time, weighing the pros and cons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, as well, that at least from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm totally off base with this, but it seems to me like the restaurant industry, from the standpoint of the cooking and preparation side of things, is an industry that there's kind of multiple ways to get to the end goal. Like if your end goal is to open a restaurant or be the head chef at a restaurant, you can do kind of like what you said, like you can approach culinary school and you can use that as your tool, or you can also just start working under a great chef. Like you said, like you can kind of work your way up in that traditional way. And then if you decide to go to culinary school after that to really hone in your craft, then that's another option available to you. But I think it's very interesting because, like, if you think about, like I work here, we do accounting and taxes, and this isn't necessarily an environment that you could just like walk in and find your favorite, tax firm and just get a job at and work your way up under the best CPA in town, and then you become one yourself. But in the restaurant industry, that option is available to you a lot of times. But then, there arises the question of who should you work under? What environment should you work in? I think it's very interesting and one that it's such a unique industry and such a unique dynamic of things kind of working together that I just think it's really, really interesting that there's multiple ways to get to the same end like that, Yeah. Did you ever, was this something that you always wanted to do in some way, or was this something that you really you really took to kind of in those years whenever you first started working in the kitchen of a restaurant?
I want to piggyback off the last point you made and kind of give an analogy to maybe help people understand better. I would kind of relate, deciding to do culinary school or going to work in a restaurant to pro sports and everything, like the whole one and done culture now, like in college basketball, or like you can go to the minor leagues and go work at some chain restaurants, or you can go to the big leagues and go work, get a job that's harder to get, and maybe wash dishes in a nicer restaurant and work your way up as a prep cook and stuff like that and everything, and do it that way and kind of go straight to the pros out of high school, like Kobe Bryant or some of those guys that have did, and maybe go work for one of the best chefs in town as if they were a Phil Jackson or Pat Riley or something like that.
Yeah.
But to your second question, I didn't know this was something I wanted to do. It kind of came about, when I graduated college, and I was an assistant basketball coach, and I was on my own, and I began to cook for myself, and I would spend time on the phone talking to my mom. Hey, Mom, how do you make so-and-so? How do you do this and everything? And I would be in the kitchen trying to cook and everything, making a bunch of mistakes and everything, and trying to read cookbooks and stuff, and because I missed, a lot of the flavors and the food that I had growing up. And then, like I didn't get into teaching and coaching because it was something that I desired to do. So when I graduated college, one of the things that I did, I became a graduate assistant in between becoming a professional coach at Lee University. And there was a master's program, and they only offered one degree, and that one degree was teaching. And the whole idea behind that was, if I was going to continue in this career path as a coach, getting a teaching degree would offer me stability, as a coach and everything, so I could, be able to get a job teaching at the college level, and also working as a coach. So that was the whole premise behind that and everything. But my heart of hearts was to actually get a master's degree in business, and I didn't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
So teaching it was.
Yeah.
So that transition, when my time ended at Lee University as an assistant coach, I transitioned here to a job in Hamilton County at Tyner High School as a teacher and coach, and then one thing led to another, and I started my journey of discovery and becoming a chef.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the cool thing, at least to me, hearing about that is, I think a lot of times we as individuals, we tend to, rightfully so or wrongfully so, we tend to pigeonhole ourselves and think that once we've decided on a certain path or a certain career or a certain idea of what we want to be, that is all that we can be. And I think that, at least in your story, like, I think it's really cool that you have now had experience in two very different fields, but those fields have made you into who you are today. And it's just, for me as a, 22 going on 23-year-old, stories like that are always very helpful and inspiring to me, because a lot of times, like, I and other individuals, like, we always think of, like, what are you going to do with your life? Like, what do you want to do? And it can be very easy to think that whatever it is that you decide to do first is the thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life. But you still have options available to you. There's still things that you can do. There's still time to pivot and change. And I think that's a great reminder to have, and a great thing to remember, no matter what stage of life that you're in,
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And the other interesting part about the decision I made to quit teaching was I quit in May of 2007. I was going to get tenure as a teacher the following year. It would have been my 5th year teaching, and I was up for tenure. So, which obviously would have offered a lot of job security, but I decided against it because I wanted to follow my passion.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man. I love it. Well, Kenyatta, first, I want to just say thank you for coming in. It's been a lot of fun just getting to talk with you and learn about you and your story and what you've had going on. I've been, like I said, kind of at the beginning, I've had the pleasure of kind of watching your story grow a little bit over the past few months and just seeing all the things you've been up to. And I was really looking forward to chatting with you today. So I appreciate you, one, just for coming in and making some time to chat with me and sharing a little bit about your story. Before we finish up, there is one kind of segment that I like to finish each episode off with, just as a fun little way to end off each episode. And this is a short segment that I like to call 15 Quick Questions.
Okay.
And so I've got 15 questions for you. They're this or that questions, A or B, hot or cold. And I just want to hear your thoughts off the top of your head and see what you have to say. Some of these are intentionally food related, because I know that you work with food a lot. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on these. So does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. This is 15 Quick Questions with Chef Kenyatta. Number 1, hot coffee or iced coffee, or you can sub tea if you prefer that.
Yerba mate.
Yerba mate?
Yeah.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
Do you prefer, or how do you prefer to have it? I have not had enough yerba mate to tell you.
Yerba mate, probably cold.
Okay, gotcha. That's not something I haven't had enough of to know to really know how it's prepped. So interesting. All right, number 2, pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Yes.
You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Number 3, does ranch belong on spaghetti? Yes or no?
No. Absolutely.
All right. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
I'm a big waffle guy. I prefer waffles.
I like the texture.
Yeah, me too.
Contrast, yeah.
Oh yeah, me too. Which do you prefer, French fries or tater tots?
It's hard to beat a really good French fry.
And there's different kinds of French fries. Like there's different ways you can make it, So
Yeah.
Would you rather eat cookie dough or brownie batter?
Brownie batter.
Which do you prefer, Italian food or Mexican food? Those are like two of my favorites. That's why I'm asking. I'm curious.
Yeah. Both cuisines are really, really good. But I would probably say Mexican food.
At this point in my life, for whatever reason, I'm a big Mexican food fan. Like I'm a big fan. So I would go along with that.
Like really authentic Mexican food. Like like I would like to go into the Oaxaca state or somewhere and like spend some time at somebody's grandma's house cooking in the backyard and just eating everything that they prepare for me.
Oh yeah, I know I've mentioned this before. I think I've mentioned this before on here, and I've talked to some of my close friends about it. But I had the privilege of taking a trip to Texas a couple summers ago, and we got to go like south Texas, like right below the border, and some of the best Mexican food I've ever had. It was unlike anything I'd ever had before. Yeah. I have pictures of the food, and every now and then I'll see those and be like, oh my gosh, like it was just unlike anything I've had before. So I talk about that a lot off the show, but that just reminded me. But yes, I would definitely agree. All right. What is better on a hot day, ice cream or a popsicle?
I like popsicles, particularly the ones that are made from like fresh fruit.
Yeah.
Those are really refreshing. And delicious. Yeah.
Those are good. All right. Which do you prefer, guacamole or salsa?
Salsa probably, because I haven't had enough variations in guacamole.
Yeah,
and I'm sure, like, cause like you can get like all kinds of salsas.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't thought about that way.
And I've only seen guacamole prepared, particular way, onions, chilies, cilantro, maybe some jalapeno, some jalapeno and some tomato or something like that.
Yeah.
But salsa, because you can make salsas from lots of different things.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that way before. All right. Which do you prefer, crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Crunchy peanut butter.
I agree. I'm a big fan of crunchy.
Yeah.
All right. Final 5 questions here. When you're cooking, which do you prefer? More appliances when cooking, so more kind of like things to help you along the way, or do you like to do it more traditionally, where it's you, a knife, and maybe like a mortar and pestle go along with it? Does that make sense?
It would be me, the knife, and the mortar and pestle.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that having, in my opinion, sometimes having the more like things around you it just gets distracting, if that makes sense. All right. Spicy food or mild food?
Spicy.
Yeah. Would you rather go vegan or carnivore? If you had to choose one or the other.
I want to open up a vegan restaurant.
Really?
I do.
Nice.
Because I really want to explore the idea of making vegan food out of really good vegan food out of just using everyday things.
Yeah.
Just making vegan food out of vegetables, not making not taking other things and processing them and this is vegan meat or this is the vegetables are the star. Like making really good dishes that are satisfying, that you can get umami from, that you can get texture contrast from vegetables. And I think that's something that nobody in Chattanooga is doing.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, if you do that, definitely let me know. I want to try that out because I think that I'm not personally a vegan, but it's more just because I don't know at this point. Like I don't know how to prepare enough vegan dishes where I would be satisfied with it, like throughout a week or a month or so. So I think that'd be awesome. I would love to see that. That would be fantastic.
And it would be cool because it'll be challenging, like you said, to use vegetables and foods in their seasonality.
Yeah.
And to make really good food from it.
Yeah.
Like it would be like a really good challenge as a chef. Of your creativity and your skill.
Yeah, I love it. All right, final 2 questions. Which do you prefer, sweet or savory?
Savory.
And final question. I asked this question of everybody, so I want to hear your answer and also hear your rationale behind your answer. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? So you got 100 small little horses or one really, really big duck. Which would you prefer and why? I want to hear your thought process here.
One horse-sized duck.
Yes.
100 duck-sized
horses. I can see the wheels are turning.
Oh, wow. Yeah. what do I get to fight the ducks with?
So usually the way I think of it is like some kind of blunt object. So like I feel like a gun would be too far because that'd just be too much of an advantage. So some kind of blunt object is kind of what I'm thinking of this hypothetical situation.
Yeah, some kind of blunt object. So a duck-sized horse. What kind of duck though? Is it a duck that can fly?
That's a good question. In my mind, I'm thinking of like a classic, just like yellow duck, just like a classic yellow, I guess orange bill. I guess their bill is orange.
Yeah.
Just like a yellow classic. I assume they can fly, but that's what in my mind what I'm thinking of.
If they could fly, I would take the bigger one because I would think of the duck-sized horses. Okay, so the duck-sized. Okay, now I'm thinking. I would do the duck-sized horses.
Okay. So you're taking the 100 small horses. Okay.
The 100 small horses.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's
because they can't fly. Right. Yeah, I got it now. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you for playing along. That is 15 quick questions for you. Before we finish up, I know that you've got links for social media accounts for yourself and for Neutral Ground, so I'll make sure those are included in the description of the episode. So if you're listening and you want to check them out, then definitely find those down there. But are there any other links or anything that people should be aware of that they can find you and follow along with?
Follow us on our social media. Mm-hmm. That will be the easiest way to keep track of any progress or any new updates, particularly on Chef Kenyatta Ashford and on at Neutral Ground Chat, both on Facebook and Instagram.
Sweet. Well, I will make sure those links are down there. So if you are listening and you want to check those out, then definitely head down there, check out what Kenyatta has going on. And I recommend giving them a follow, see what they've got going on and following along with all the things that they are doing. But yeah, with all that out of the way, Kenyatta, thank you for coming in this evening and talking with me. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure getting to chat with you, and thank you very much for coming in. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Daniel. Thank you.
For sure. And for everyone that is out there listening, thank you as always for tuning into this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to check out any of the links or anything that was mentioned previously, check out the description down below. If you'd like to contact myself, then that link will be down below as well. As always, thank you for listening to and supporting the show, and I'll catch you all on another episode of the podcast. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. As one final reminder, if you'd like to support the show, then don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast, or share it with a friend. If you'd like to check out any links that were mentioned during the show, or follow the show or myself on social media, then feel free to head to the description of today's episode to find these links. As always, thank you again for checking out today's episode, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I will catch you all on the next episode of the podcast. See ya!